The rain hammered against the taxi window like 1,000 tiny accusations as I clutched my duffel bag, staring at the blurred neon signs of Barcelona's Gothic quarter. I'd fled New York 6 months ago, chasing some half-baked dream of reinvention in Spain, but tonight, as the driver cursed under his breath and swerved through flooded streets, I wondered if I'd just traded one storm for another. When the cab finally screeched to a halt outside a crumbling 19th-century building on Cara de el Argenteria, I stepped out into the downpour, my heart pounding, not from the jet lag, but from the email that had sealed this impulsive move. Room for rent. Straight female, 26, chill vibes. No drama. I paid the driver with trembling hands, the euros slick from the rain, and hauled my bag up 3 flights of narrow, creaking stairs that smelled of aged wood and paella spices from the neighbors below. The door to apartment 3B was ajar, spilling warm golden light into the dim hallway like an invitation I wasn't sure I deserved. I knocked anyway, my knuckles barely grazing the chipped paint, and a voice called out, smooth Midwestern with that effortless lilt that screamed safe harbor. Come on in, soggy wanderer. Doors open. Pushing inside, I was hit by the scent of fresh lavender candles and something baking, cinnamon maybe? The space was a cozy chaos. Exposed brick walls adorned with Polaroids of sun-soaked beaches, a mismatched sectional sofa piled with throw blankets, and bookshelves groaning under dog-eared copies of Joan Didion and Elena Ferrante. It was the kind of place that whispered start over here. And for a split second I let myself believe it. She emerged from the tiny kitchenette, wiping flour-dusted hands on a dish towel, her blonde waves tied back in a loose ponytail that framed a face straight out of a J. Crew catalog, high cheekbones, freckles dusting her nose, and eyes the color of Lake Michigan on a clear day. Mackenzie. We'd emailed back and forth for weeks, her gushing about her job as a graphic designer for a local wine import company, me dodging questions about why I'd upended my life at 28 to teach English in a city I'd only seen in Instagram reels. She was straight, she'd said casually in one message, dating some guy back in Chicago but keeping it casual. No red flags. Just the roommate jackpot I'd been praying for. Melody, right? God, you look like a drowned poet. Here, let me grab you a towel. She thrust a fluffy blue one at me, her smile wide and genuine, the kind that crinkles the corners of her eyes. Up close, she was even more disarming, 5 feet 7 inches to my 5 feet 4 inches, with that athletic build from weekend hikes in the nearby Montserrat Mountains. I mumbled a thank you, toweling off my auburn curls, which had frizzed into a halo of regret. We toured the place like old friends, her bedroom with the balcony overlooking the shadowy alleys, the shared bathroom with its clawfoot tub that promised long soaks after long days, and my room, a sun-drenched nook with a single window framing the spires of the Cathedral of Barcelona. Rent split 50-50, utilities included, she rattled off, handing me a key that jingled like a promise. House rules. No fish tanks, they freak me out, and movie nights are mandatory. Deal. Deal, I echoed, forcing a grin despite the knot in my chest. Truth was, I'd been running from more than a dead-end marketing gig back home. My last relationship, a whirlwind with a painter named Sophia, had crashed in a blaze of jealousy and slammed doors, leaving me questioning if love was just a prettier word for loss. Spain was my reset button. Mackenzie was the neutral ground. That first night, we demolished a pan of her cinnamon rolls while binge-watching The Crown on her ancient laptop, the rain a relentless percussion outside. She laughed at my impressions of snooty British royals, her head thrown back, throat exposed in a way that made my stomach flip unbidden. Stop it, I chided myself. She's straight. You're just lonely. But as she passed me the remote, our fingers brushed, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that spark, electric, forbidden. The weeks blurred into a rhythm that felt dangerously like home. Mornings started with the gurgle of her espresso machine, her belting out Taylor Swift in a voice that was more enthusiasm than talent, while I shuffled out in my ratty robe, grading essays from my gig at the Language Institute downtown. Barcelona enveloped us like a lover's arms. Lazy afternoons wandering La Rambla, dodging pickpockets and street performers. Evenings at tapas bars where we'd split patatas bravas and pitchers of sangria. Her stories of growing up in a big Irish Catholic family in Evanston spilling out like confessions. You're like a walking contradiction, she said one night, after I dragged her to a queer poetry reading in the Bourne district. We were tipsy on vermouth, leaning against the bar of a dimly lit kava lounge, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the strum of a flamenco guitar from the corner. All that fire in your words. Love as a revolution, you called it. And then you hole up in your room sketching mandalas like some Zen monk. I shrugged, heat creeping up my neck. Keeps the chaos at bay. What's your poison for sanity? She toyed with her glass, her blue eyes distant. Running. Clears the head. Or baking. Turns disasters into something sweet. A pause, then softer. You know, I'm glad you answered that ad. This city's magic, but it's lonelier than it looks. Her vulnerability cracked something in me. I wanted to reach across the table, trace the worry lines etching her forehead, tell her she wasn't alone. Instead, I clinked my glass to hers. To disasters turned sweet. But cracks formed early, subtle as hairline fractures in porcelain. Her casual boyfriend, Jake, started video calling more. Late nights when I'd stumble home from grading sessions, only to hear her laughter echoing through the thin walls, laced with that intimate timbre reserved for lovers. I'd retreat to my room, earbuds in, blasting Hosier to drown it out, telling myself it was nothing. Just roommate envy. Then came the weekend in Valencia. She'd scored us cheap train tickets for the Phallus Festival. Giant cartoonish effigies burning in the streets, fireworks cracking like gunfire. We arrived at dusk, the air acrid with smoke and anticipation, our backpacks slung low as we wove through crowds chanting in Valenciano. That night, after too many Estelas and a street parade that left us painted with glitter, we collapsed on a park bench overlooking the Turia Gardens, the city ablaze behind us. You're glowing, she murmured, her head lolling against my shoulder. The weight of her was warm, trusting, her hair tickling my collarbone. Fireworks bloomed overhead, painting her face in reds and golds. So are you, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the cheers. Our hands found each other in the dark, fingers interlacing like puzzle pieces long separated. It was innocent, I told myself. Drunk. Festival-fueled camaraderie. But when she didn't pull away, even as the embers faded, a whisper of possibility stirred in my chest, fragile as ash. Back in Barcelona, the glow lingered. We'd linger over breakfasts that stretched into brunches, her feet brushing mine under the table, accidentally. She'd borrow my sweaters, claiming they smelled like vanilla and adventure, and return them folded with notes tucked inside. Wear this to your next reading. Channel your inner rebel. I started noticing the way her gaze lingered when I laughed, the flush on her cheeks after our evening jogs along the Barceloneta boardwalk. One rainy Tuesday, I came home early to find her curled on the sofa, Jake's face frozen on her laptop screen mid-call. She slammed it shut, eyes red-rimmed. He wants me to move back. Says long distance is killing him. My heart clenched. And you? She looked up, searching my face like I held the map to her north. I don't know anymore. Chicago feels like a ghost town. Here, everything's alive. I sat beside her, close enough to feel the heat radiating off her skin. Then stay alive. She leaned into me then, her head on my shoulder, and we sat like that until the rain stopped, two silhouettes against the storm, unspoken words hanging heavy between us. It was the first time I let myself hope. Foolish, reckless hope. Hope has a way of blooming in the quiet hours, like bougainvillea overtaking a neglected wall. By December, our apartment had transformed into a cocoon of shared secrets. String lights draped over the bookshelves, a communal playlist that swung from Billie Holiday to Rosalia, and rituals that bound us tighter than blood. Mackenzie's designs for the wine company started featuring my sketches, delicate line drawings of olive groves and sun-bleached cliffs, and she'd credit me in meetings, her voice proud over speakerphone as colleagues cooed approval. You're my muse, she'd tease, pinning a fresh print to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a flamenco dancer. Muse. The word lodged in my throat, sweet and sharp. Christmas crept up. Barcelona decked in twinkling lights and nativity scenes that spilled onto every plaza. Jake's calls dwindled to once a week, then sporadic texts she left unread. He's fading, she confided one evening, as we strung popcorn garlands in the living room, the radio crooning Feliz Navidad, like an old Polaroid losing color. I nodded, careful not to probe, but inside a selfish relief unfurled. More space for us, for the way she'd surprise me with churros after my late classes, or how we'd dance in the kitchen to La Vie en Rose, her hands on my waist guiding me through clumsy steps, laughter bubbling up like cava. The betrayal came softly at first, disguised as normalcy. It was New Year's Eve, the city pulsing with anticipation for the 12 grapes tradition. We'd planned a quiet night in, paella from the market, a bottle of priorat, and resolutions whispered at midnight. But as I chopped saffron threads in the kitchen, my phone buzzed with a text from an old friend back home. Heard about Sophia? She's engaged. Thought you'd want to know. The knife slipped, nicking my thumb. Blood welled, a crimson bead that smeared the cutting board. Engaged. To whom? The painter who'd sworn art was our only fidelity? I bandaged the cut, the sting a welcome distraction, but Mackenzie noticed immediately. Her intuition sharp as a switchblade. Hey, what's wrong? Talk to me. I waved it off, forcing a smile. Ghost from the past. Nothing new. She set down her wine glass, crossing to me in 2 strides, her fingers gentle on my wrist as she inspected the bandage. Liar. Spill. Under her gaze the dam cracked. Words tumbled out, Sophia's passion, the fights over her wandering eyes, the final betrayal when I'd found lipstick on her collar that wasn't mine. I thought love meant choosing, you know? But she made me feel like the option. Mackenzie's eyes darkened. Not with pity but a fierce protectiveness. She was a fool. You're the kind of woman who lights up rooms without trying. Deserving of someone who sees that. Her thumb brushed my knuckles, lingering. The air thickened, charged like the moments before a thunderstorm over the Mediterranean. I could have pulled away, kept the boundary intact. Instead, I leaned in, our foreheads touching, breaths mingling in the space between. Kinsey. The clock struck 11, fireworks already popping in the distance. She cupped my face, her touch tentative, reverent. Melody, The doorbell rang, shrill and intrusive. She froze, then pulled back with a shaky laugh. Pizza guy? I forgot we ordered extra. But it wasn't the delivery. Jake stood in the doorway, drenched from the drizzle, a duffel slung over his shoulder and a bouquet of wilting roses in hand. His face, boyish, earnest, with that perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, crumpled at the sight of us, close, intimate. Mac? Surprise. I couldn't wait anymore. I took the red eye. The room tilted. Mackenzie's hand dropped from mine like a stone. Jake. What? How? He stepped inside, oblivious at first, dropping his bag with a thud that echoed my pulse. Figured we'd ring in the new year together. Like old times. His eyes flicked to me, polite confusion. Hey Rumi. Melody, right? Mind if we have a minute? I mumbled something about fresh air and fled to the balcony, the cold biting through my sweater. Below, revelers cheered as the first grapes were devoured. Toasts to fortune and forgetfulness. Inside, their voices rose, his earnest pleas, her soothing deflections. It's not that simple, Jake. Things have changed. By the time I re-entered, the paella was cold, the wine untouched. Jake had claimed the sofa, his arm draped possessively over Mackenzie's shoulders, while she stared at her lap, avoiding my eyes. We're good now, he announced, as if declaring victory. Max always overthought this long-distance crap. But I'm here. For real. I forced a nod, throat tight. Great. Happy New Year. That night, as fireworks lit the sky in a cacophony of color, I lay in bed listening to the murmur of their reconciliation through the wall, soft laughter, the creak of springs. Betrayal, I realized, wasn't always a knife in the back. Sometimes it was the slow erosion of a bridge you'd half-built in your dreams. January dawned gray and unforgiving, Barcelona's winter chill seeping into the bones. Jake overstayed his welcome, morphing our apartment into a temporary love nest. His sneakers by the door, his toiletries cluttering the bathroom sink, his booming laugh displacing our quiet harmonies. Mackenzie withdrew, her smiles brittle, her touches accidental. She'd catch my eye across the breakfast table, a silent apology in her gaze, but Jake was a gravitational pull, yanking her back. I buried myself in work, extra shifts at the Institute, freelance illustrations for local zines, anything to avoid the ghost of what might have been. One afternoon, during a rare solo lunch at a cafe in El Raval, my phone lit up with a message from her. Coffee after your class? Miss our talks. Heart stuttering, I replied, sure. Usual spot? We met at Federal, the hipster haven with its mismatched mugs and avocado toast platters. She arrived flustered, Jake's scarf, ugly plaid, wrapped around her neck. He insisted, she said, unwinding it like a noose. Thinks it's cozy for the rain. We ordered flat whites, the steam curling between us like unanswered questions. How's the prodigal boyfriend? I asked, aiming for levity. She stirred her foam into spirals. Intense. Good, I guess. But it's like wearing an old coat. Familiar but doesn't fit right anymore. I traced the rim of my cup, steeling myself. And what fits now? Her eyes met mine, raw, searching. I don't know. That night, New Year's, I was going to tell you something. About how you've made this city feel like it's mine. Like I'm seen. The words hung fragile. My pulse thrummed. Then say it. Before she could, her phone buzzed, Jake with a photo of tapas he'd surprised her with at home. She sighed, pocketing it. Later? Promise. Later became a series of almosts, interrupted walks by the Cittadella Park, where she'd start a confession only for a call to derail. Evenings when she'd linger in my doorway, words faltering on her lips. The tension coiled tighter, a spring ready to snap. It broke on a February night during Carnival. The streets of the Bari Gothic thrummed with masked revelers, devils and queens swirling in a riot of sequins and feathers. Mackenzie and I had slipped out without Jake, who'd begged off with a migraine, claiming jet lag. We donned simple disguises, me as a Victorian spectre in a lace veil, her as a woodland nymph with ivy crown, and lost ourselves in the throng, the anonymity liberating. Under the glow of lanterns strung like fireflies, she pulled me into an alley off Placa rail, the bass of distant drums vibrating the stones. Melody, wait. Her voice was breathy, urgent. She pressed me gently against the wall, her hands framing my face, thumbs brushing my cheeks. Rain-slick ivy framed us, the world muffled to a hum. I've been fighting this since the day you walked in, soaked and stubborn. You're not just my roommate. You're everything I didn't know I needed. I think I'm falling for you. Time fractured. Her lips met mine, soft, hesitant, then deepening with a hunger that mirrored my own. The veil slipped from my hair, forgotten as I kissed her back, tasting salt and sangria and the sweet ache of surrender. Her fingers tangled in my curls, pulling me closer. The alley, our private cosmos. We broke apart, gasping, foreheads pressed, grins blooming like spring. Straight, huh? I teased, voice husky. She laughed, a sound like bells. Apparently not. Not with you. We tumbled home at dawn, hands linked, the apartment silent. Jake gone back to Chicago for work, oblivious. For the first time, our shared space felt truly ours. Her lips on mine in the kitchen, lazy kisses over morning coffee, nights tangled in sheets that smelled of us. But paradise, I've learned, is just the prelude to the fall. Spring unfurled in Barcelona like a secret unveiled. Jacaranda trees blushing purple along Passeig de Gracia. The sea air turning balmy with promise. Our love was a quiet revolution. Stolen glances over lesson plans, her sketches now laced with my initials hidden in the vines, whispered te quieros in the hush of midnight. Mackenzie ended things with Jake over a transatlantic call, her voice steady as she cited growing apart, sparing the messy truth. He took it hard, texts pleading, voicemails thick with hurt, but she blocked him, choosing us. You're free, I murmured that night, as we lay on the balcony under a canopy of stars, her head in my lap, my fingers combing through her hair. With you, she replied, eyes shining. Finally. We built a life in the margins, weekend escapes to the Costa Brava, where we'd hike cliffside paths hand in hand, the waves crashing below like applause, cooking classes in Gracia, where her competitive streak turned paella into playful battles, flower fights ending in flower-dusted kisses. My poetry readings drew her like a moth, front row clapping loudest, her pride a balm to old wounds. Yet doubt lingered, a shadow at the edges. She'd wake from nightmares murmuring Jake's name, or pause mid-sentence when queer couples passed us on the street, her grip tightening on mine as if anchoring herself. It's new, she'd say, brushing it off. Like learning a language, stumbles included. I nodded, swallowing my unease. Love, after all, was translation. The conflict ignited in May, with the arrival of her sister, Erin. A carbon copy of Mackenzie at 24, blonde, blue-eyed with that same Midwestern wholesomeness. Erin flew in for a week, ostensibly for her post-grad backpacking tour, but really, Mackenzie confided, to check on me after the breakup. We prepped the apartment like a stage. My books discreetly shelved, our balcony photos tucked away, the narrative scripted as just roommates super close. Aaron swept in like a whirlwind, hugging Mackenzie fiercely, then extending a cool hand to me. "So you're the famous Melody. Max told me all about your adventures." "All good, I hope," I replied, forcing warmth. Her smile was polite, assessing. "Mostly. She's raved about your cooking. And that poetry thing, edgy." The week devolved into a minefield. Aaron commandeered movie nights with rom-coms starring chiseled leading men, her commentary laced with barbs. "Remember that guy from college, Mac? The one who looked like Chris Hemsworth? You two were perfect." Mackenzie laughed it off, but I'd catch her wince, her hand seeking mine under the blanket when Aaron dozed. One evening, after a tapas crawl in the Elborn, Aaron cornered me in the bathroom while Mackenzie paid the bill. "Look, I get it, you're family now. But Jake called me devastated. Said Mac changed overnight. If you're influencing her." Influencing. The word tasted bitter. "We're friends. She makes her own choices." Aaron's eyes narrowed, voice low. "Friends don't look at each other like that. Just don't break her. She's straighter than she thinks." The accusation lodged like shrapnel. That night, as Aaron crashed on the sofa, Mackenzie slipped into my room, her body curling against mine in the dark. "Ignore her. She's protective. Thinks she's saving me from myself." But is she? The question escaped before I could cage it. She stilled. "What?" I sat up, the sheets pooling. "Do you ever wonder if this us is just a phase? A Barcelona fling before you go back to normal?" Her face crumpled. "Melody, no. This is real. You're real." We made love then, slow, reaffirming, her touches mapping every doubt until they dissolved in gasps and sighs. But Aaron's words festered, a poison seeping slow. She left after 7 days, air kissing us both at the airport, her parting shot to Mackenzie a whispered, "Call if you need an anchor, sis. Real ones." The rift widened subtly after. Mackenzie threw herself into work, deadlines piling as the wine company's summer launch loomed. Our dates shortened to quick cafe meetups, her exhaustion a barrier thicker than walls. "It's temporary," she'd insist, kissing my forehead. "Once this project's done." I filled the voids with my own escapes, late nights at open mics, where I'd pour our story into verses that drew nods from strangers, catharsis in the applause. But home felt adrift, our once vibrant space echoing with silences. The high tide of conflict crashed in June during Pride. Barcelona's streets erupted in rainbow glory. Floats blaring Bad Bunny, marchers in feathered headdresses chanting for visibility, the air electric with defiance and joy. We'd planned to join the parade, Mackenzie in a custom tee she designed, emblazoned with intertwined olive branches, me with a sign reading "Love speaks all languages." But as we dressed that morning, her phone rang. Jake unblocked somehow, his voice tinny through the speaker. "Mac, please. One coffee. I'm in town for business." Closure. She hesitated, glancing at me. "It's nothing. Old news." "Go," I said, masking the twist in my gut. "Get it over with." She left with a promise. Back by noon. We marched together. Noon stretched to 3, my texts unanswered amid the growing roar of the crowds. I wandered the fringes alone, the rainbow flags a blur through stinging eyes. By 5, as the parade peaked at Plaza de España, she appeared, disheveled, eyes swollen, Jake nowhere in sight. What happened? I pulled her into a side street, away from the confetti storm. She collapsed against me, sobs racking her frame. "He knew about us. Said Aaron's suspicions were right, that I'd gone gay because of the city or you or some crisis. Begged me to come home, fix it. I told him it's over, but God, Melody, he looked at me like I was broken. Rage and sorrow warred in my chest. You're not broken. You're brave." Her grip tightened, nails digging crescents. Am I? What if he's right? What if this is just rebellion? The word sliced deeper than any blade. Rebellion? Is that what we are? No, yes, I don't know. She pulled back, tears carving paths through her makeup. I love you, but it's terrifying. My family's all straight-laced, church every Sunday. What if I can't be this forever? The parade thundered on, a celebration turned cacophony. I stood there, heart fracturing as she walked away. Not toward home but into the crowd, vanishing like smoke. That night she didn't come back. I paced the apartment, phone silent, The string lights mocking our faded joy. By dawn a text. Staying with a friend. Need space. Don't hate me. Hate? No. But the ache was a chasm, betrayal's cruel twin. Summer scorched Barcelona into a furnace, sidewalks radiating heat, the air heavy with salt and sunscreen. Mackenzie's absence stretched into weeks, our apartment a mausoleum of half-lived memories. Her forgotten sketchpad on the coffee table, my poetry notebook scrawled with unfinished laments. She texted sporadically, working late. Miss you. But the subtext screamed distance. I threw myself into the Institute's summer intensive, drilling verb conjugations with tourists who dreamed aloud of romance, their envy a bitter mirror. One blistering afternoon, as cicadas droned outside my classroom window, my phone vibrated mid-lesson. Her. Can we talk? Café de la Pedrera, 7 p.m.? I arrived early, nursing an iced horchata. The café's terrace shaded by date palms that whispered conspiracies. She appeared at 7 sharp, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown of thorns, her sundress fluttering in the breeze. Thinner perhaps, shadows under her eyes, but still that magnetic pull. We ordered, her accorded me another horchata, and danced around the pleasantries. Work deadlines, a mutual friend's wedding invite. Finally she exhaled. I've been with Aaron. She flew back after pride. Convinced me to sort my head. The horchata turned to ash in my mouth. Sort? Like laundry. She winced. Therapy sessions. Online with this counselor from home. Unpacking my identity confusion. Identity confusion. The phrase landed like a slap. And? What's the verdict, Dr. Freud? Mackenzie Hayes, straight with a side of experimental curiosity. Her laugh was hollow. Or something. They say it's common, women like me, late bloomers, mistaking deep friendship for more. I leaned forward, voice low. Is that what we were? A deep friendship with benefits? No. God, no. She reached for my hand, but I pulled back. It was real. Is real. But Jake, Aaron, they're my history. You can't erase that overnight. And I never asked you to. My voice cracked. But you ran. At the first sign of storm, you bolted to the safe shore. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over. I'm scared, Melody. Of losing my family, my sense of self. What if loving you means becoming someone else? Then maybe that someone else is braver. I stood, chair scraping. I won't be your experiment. Call when you're sure. I walked away, the sunset bleeding orange across the Ramblas, her sobs lost in the tourist inn. Back home I packed a bag. Not leaving but armoring myself. The betrayal stung not in the lie but the half-truth. She'd glimpsed our future and flinched. July brought a fragile truce. She moved back in, tiptoeing around eggshells, our interactions polite as strangers. Movie nights resumed, but the sofa yawned between us. Breakfasts were silent symphonies of clinking spoons. I dated casually, a barista with a poet's soul, a fellow teacher with easy laughs, but they were placeholders, echoes of what we'd lost. The climax brewed in August, during the Festa Major de Gracia. Neighborhood streets transformed into whimsical wonderlands, facades painted in surreal murals, fireworks heralding the Sardana dances. Mackenzie, seeking redemption, suggested we go as friends. For old times, she pleaded, eyes hopeful. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We wandered the transformed blocks. Giants fashioned from recycled cans guarding alleyways, children in flower crowns twirling to accordions. The magic worked its spell, loosening tongues, and soon we were laughing, genuine, unguarded, over gelato cones dripping in the heat. At midnight, as fireworks cascaded over the rooftops, she pulled me onto a quiet stoop, the air scented with jasmine and gunpowder. I was wrong, she whispered, her hand on my knee. Therapy helped, but not how they wanted. It showed me I'm not confused, I'm expanding. And I want you in that. Hope flickered, treacherous. Kenzie, we've danced this tango before. This time I'm leading. She kissed me then, not tentative but fierce, pouring months of longing into it. The world exploded in light and color, our silhouettes etched against the blaze. We fell into bed that night, rediscovering each other with the tenderness of survivors. Dawn found us entwined, her head on my chest, vows murmured against skin. No more running. But betrayal, that sly serpent, had one final coil. September arrived with equinox winds, And with it a letter crisp official from Mackenzie's employer. Layoffs, economic ripple from global markets. She spiraled, job hunting a Sisyphean task, her confidence fracturing. One evening I came home to find her on the balcony, phone in hand, Jake's name on the caller ID. "He offered me a position," she said, not looking up. "In Chicago. Creative director for his firm's new branch. Salary double mine here." The air evacuated the room. "And it's a lifeline. For us. We could move together. Start fresh away from the ghosts." "Chicago." I echoed, vision tunneling. "Your lifeline, maybe. Mine's here." In the words, the waves, the woman who promised no more running. She stood, desperation etching her features. "This isn't running. It's building. With you. Or without." The accusation hung. "You unblocked him. How long has this been brewing?" Her silence damned her. "A month. Just talks. Professional. Betrayal's full bloom. Not just the act but the premeditation. Professional, my ass. You're choosing safety again. Him. Them. No." She grabbed my arms, eyes wild. "I choose us. Come with me." I wrenched free, storming inside, slamming the bedroom door. The lock clicked like finality. She pounded once, twice. "Melody, please. Don't make me choose." The choice was already made. Dawn broke with her gone, duffel packed, a note on the counter. "I love you enough to let you hate me. Forgive me someday. K." The apartment echoed emptier than before. Her absence a wound that wept. Autumn draped Barcelona in golds and rusts, the leaves crunching underfoot like brittle regrets. October found me adrift. Lessons droned through on autopilot. Poetry readings met with polite claps that felt like pity. Friends rallied. Tapas interventions at Quimet and Quimet, where Jamana Barrico and Kava couldn't quite staunch the bleed. Late night calls to my sister in Brooklyn, her voice a lifeline across oceans. "Grieve it out, Mel. Then grow." Grief was a tide, ebbing in manic productivity, submitting chapbooks to presses, landing a part-time gig illustrating for a queer lit mag, surging in solitary walks along the port, where freighters groaned like lost souls. Mackenzie's social media went dark, then resurfaced. Chicago skyline selfies, her smile practiced, professional headshots for the new job. No tags, no traces of us. The clean cut stung, but clarity followed. Love wasn't possession but release. November's chill brought the first frost, and with it, an unexpected thaw. A package arrived, brown paper postmarked Evanston, containing her sketchpad, pages filled with our story. Barcelona balconies in ink, my profile etched in loving strokes, a final drawing of two hands releasing a lantern into the night sky. Tucked inside, a letter, handwriting loopy and familiar. "Dearest Melody. Words fail the depth of my regret, but I'll try. I ran because fear is a thief, it stole my courage, then you. Chicago is sharp edges. Family dinners with probing questions. Jake's friendship, a polite fiction that chafes. Every street corner echoes your laugh. Every cafe your unfinished poems. I thought safety would heal, but it's suffocation. You taught me love is not a harbor, but a horizon vast, uncharted. I'm unlearning the scripts they wrote for me, step by painful step. No pleas for forgiveness. Just this. You were my awakening. If paths cross again, know I'm braver now. Until then, live luminously. You always have. With all my heart. Mackenzie." Tears blurred the ink, but a smile cracked through, human, hopeful. Not an ending but an ellipsis. Winter solstice approached. Barcelona's lights a defiant sparkle against the dark. I hosted a Yule gathering. Expat friends, mulled wine simmering on the stove, a playlist weaving Joan Baez with Rosalia. As laughter filled the rooms we'd once shared, I raised a glass. To horizons. The new year dawned soft, with a reading at a tiny bookstore in St. Anthony. My chapbook, Lanterns Over the Med, had found a home versus raw with our saga. The crowd was intimate, nodding to lines like, "She was straight lines until I curved her world. Now we both bend toward light." After, as applause faded, a figure lingered by the stacks. Mackenzie, coat dusted with airport snow, eyes tentative but clear. "Beautiful," she said, voice thick. "You." Heart hammering, I approached. "Visiting." "More than that." She held out a ticket stub, open-ended return. "Took a leave. Therapy's mine now, not theirs. And I'm done hiding." No grand gestures, no cinematic rush. Just hands reaching, tentative then sure. We walked into the night, arms linked, the city our witness. Love, I realized, wasn't a straight path nor a detour. It was the winding ramble. Conflicts carved into wisdom, betrayals transmuted to grace. Back home, the apartment breathed anew. Her sketches rejoined mine on the walls, our playlist resuming mid-song. We talked, endlessly, vulnerably, about fears unpacked, families navigated, Aaron's slow thaw via emails, Jake's respectful distance. No rush to labels, just us evolving. By spring, we'd co-authored a zine, her designs, my words. Curves in the cartography. A quiet manifesto for late-blooming hearts. Launches in queer cafes drew crowds. Stories shared of similar unravelings. Humanistic it felt. Not triumph over pain but harmony with it. One evening on our balcony as jacarandas bloomed anew, she traced my palm. Think we make it? I kissed her knuckles. We're already there. And in the city of Gaudy's dreams, twisted, beautiful, unbroken, we built our own.